What's up, guys? Welcome back to Technically Nerdy, the place where we talk about whatever it is that we're passionate about, because that's technically nerdy. I'm Sean Connolly, and today I'm going to be going over my top choices for if you're going to be starting your own YouTube studio. Before we get started, I do want to go over a couple of tips. The first one being that you got to check sites other than the default go-to stuff like Amazon, B&H. I saved a ton of money just going to eBay trying to find deals on new items or used items that are like new, whatever it is. Going to resale sites like that is a huge help if you're trying to save some money. The second tip is create a space that's just for shooting. Even if you have to carve out a corner in a room or like I did in the basement here, it really helps to be able to go on, flip a couple switches and hit record. It saves a ton of time and it makes me much more likely to shoot. And the most important thing is to just create. You're gonna have those days where you feel like it's just a terrible day, like you're not getting the right footage, whatever it is. Power through it, don't stop recording, keep trying, keep going, and eventually you'll get there. Okay, now on to the gear. First up, let's start with the camera. I've chosen the Panasonic GH5 for my gear, mostly because I'm familiar with the Panasonic series, as I had the GH4 previously. There are a few things that the GH5 offers over the GH4, including internal stabilization, the ability to shoot at 4K 60 so I can slow down some footage for some slow-mo stuff, as well as to go all the way up to 180 frames per second. The image out of this camera looks absolutely gorgeous. If you're not looking to spend quite that much money, it's about $2,000 right now, you might want to go with something like the Sony a6500. That camera has the internal stabilization as well, so if you're going to do anything handheld, it's going to look much better than if you're going to use a different camera that doesn't offer that feature. It is about $1,400. Doesn't come with a lens. There are, some more accessible point and shoot stuff. I know Joel has the AX53, so there are other options out there that might be more suitable for that. But if you're looking for kind of like that filmic look as opposed to the broadcast newsy look, you're going to want to go with something like the A6500 or the GH5 or maybe even the A7S or the A7S II if you want to have 1080p 4K or whatever it is and have that that more filmic look to kind of give the background a little softer image. So next we're going to go over the lenses. You will notice that on the GH5 I do have a Metabone speed booster. That's because I have Canon lenses that are an EF mount for a micro four thirds mount and a micro four thirds sensor. So that's what this does. It allows me to adapt lenses and still use the electronic features like aperture and things like that normally wouldn't be able to communicate with this camera. So I do have this Canon glass here. These are the Canon L series lenses. We've got the 24-70, 24-105 actually. We've got the 16-35 here, and we've got the 70-200 here, and then on the A7S II that I'm shooting on right now, that's the 24-70. I also have the Voigtlander T.95 25mm lens, which because the GH5 has a ×2 crop factor, that 25mm is going to actually be closer to 50mm, and this camera is probably close to about 7 to 8 feet away from me, and that's at about a 50mm range right now. The only thing I'm really going to be using when I'm shooting my in-studio work is going to be the Voigtlander 25mm, but these are here to show you what I'll probably be shooting if I'm out in the field using B-roll or that kind of stuff. This is what I'll be using. Now, if I'm going to recommend anything for starting your own YouTube stuff, I'm going to say you need a 50mm equivalent, and then maybe something that goes a little bit wider than that, something around anywhere from 12 to 25mm, something around that area. If you get something like the AX53 for your camera, you won't actually need to buy lenses. That's one place where you can save money. However, using the more expensive cameras means you have to actually start buying more expensive lens, more expensive glass, and that's the cross that I choose to bear. So in the camera group, I'm gonna throw this color chart. What this color chart does is if, let's say, I'm out in the field shooting like a convention, like if I want to go to Comic-Con and cover Comic-Con, there's going to be various lighting situations. Like I'll be outdoors, I'll be on the show floor, I'll be in panels, different things like that where there are numerous light configurations. Some are daylight settings and some are tungsten settings. If you don't know what that is, trust me, I'll be getting into that in a future video. This will actually help you in post-production. If you do have mismatched lighting situations, you can pop this into Resolve, DaVinci Resolve. It's a program, it's free. Tell it what color checker you're using and it'll just lock that color right in. It's super helpful. Nothing that I'm going to be using when I'm actually in the studio, but something when I'm in the field covering events, stuff like that, definitely. Another part of the camera are going to be what are called ND filters, and they're basically
Sunglasses for your lens. This is going to go on the Voigtlander. Each lens has its own size that you have to consider. The Voigtlander is a 52mm sized ND filter, so it's going to be threaded for a 52mm ND filter. They just spin right on. If you're in a really bright situation and you really want to use or take advantage of the fact that this is a 0.95 lens, you're going to want to use an ND filter so that you can still have that nice shallow depth of field, but still actually see the things that you're shooting. So the final part of the camera gear that I'm going to recommend is a cage. If you're just doing YouTube studio stuff, you might not need it, but if you do plan to go out and shoot B-roll at conventions like I do, then you're going to want to have something to kind of give yourself a couple of good points of contact for when you're carrying your camera around. Yes, it does have the inbuilt camera stabilization, but the cage will actually help give you a little bit more in terms of stability. Also on these cages, you're going to have different mounting points. Unfortunately on this one, it only has 1/4-inch threads, but that's all I really have to worry about. This will help you mount different things like this ball mount head that I have for my monitor, and things like shotgun microphones or any sort of wireless audio that you might have. Pretty much anything that you can mount onto your camera, you can then also mount onto this cage and carry it around so that you're not missing anything, and it gives you extra options. You don't just have one thing that you can mount and carry around. On the bottom of this cage, I will put a Manfrotto plate so that this will just slide right into my tripod when I'm done to make for very easy run and gun situations. Again, this is really only if you're going to be doing stuff outside of the YouTube studio for creating your content. Next up is audio. So I've got a couple of options here. The first one is just the Rode video mic. It's really simple. I don't ever really use this to capture audio. It's more for just scratch audio basically. I'll run an XLR cable into my camera or monitor or whatever it is that I'm recording audio to, but this will just serve as kind of like a backup audio solution, just in case for whatever reason my microphone failed. My main source of audio, however, is going to be the Sennheiser AVX wireless system. This is a newer version of the tried and true wireless Sennheiser mic. I get it open here. It comes with the wireless receiver that you're going to attach to yourself and then the microphone out and clip on. Again, I'm not using this right now. I'm using the other wired lav that I have. And this is what you plug into the receiving end. So whatever your audio is going to, you'll plug this in and that will send the audio from this pack to this receiver. The other nice thing is that this will also come with a stick mic. So the stick mic here for when I'm out and doing any sort of coverage on any sort of convention stuff, this will be what I use primarily for audio, but it goes to the exact same wireless receiver. Again, I'm using this because I do plan on shooting outside of the studio. If you're just doing stuff inside a YouTube studio and never going outside, you can either do a couple of things. You can use a wired lavalier, which is going to save you a ton of money off of what this was, or you can do a shotgun mic, which will also save you money depending on what you go with. The one I'd recommend if you're doing a shotgun mic is the Rode NTG3 or the NTG2. Either one of them will get you what you need. And then you would want some sort of stand to mount that and kind of put it right above your head, just out of frame with the camera. And that will help you get some really good audio as well. But you're gonna wanna make sure that you do one thing when you get your audio, and that is putting up some sound dampening foam. I haven't put this up myself in the studio yet. This is all brand new stuff. I got about 12 sheets of these 2 foot by 2 foot panels. I'm gonna put them all around me and help with the audio down here because I am in a basement and I'm sure it sounds awful right now. To put that foam up, I do have some polystyrene, I don't know what this is, insulation spray adhesive. So you're gonna just spray it onto anything that's supposed to be, it's a foam adhesive basically. And you're gonna spray it onto that and then just stick it up on the wall. There are other ways I'm sure that you could mount some styrofoam to your wall. However, I'm not sure that any of them would be as permanent as this option. I know I've tried just taping it up and that just doesn't work. It just falls over by the time you're done recording and nobody wants that. Really quick before we go on to the lighting situation, I do have one electronic Lazy Susan. It does spin automatically on its own. I am spinning it manually right now, obviously. But you plug this thing in, you flip the switch, and it spins around. So anytime I'm getting that nice, sweet, juicy B-roll, this guy will take care of that. So there are some things that are very important when you're considering building your YouTube studio. There are places where you can save money, like stands, tripods, cables, incidentals like gaff tape, things like that where you can kind of skimp here and there. However, your camera, your audio, and your lighting need to be where you spend your money. That's why I spent so much on my audio, on my cameras, and now my lights. We've got the Aputure COB 120Ds. So Aperture is a rising star in the LED world. Right now they've got plenty of lights that are coming out that are just absolutely killer value for what you're getting. So inside this box, you're gonna get a standard power brick with an XLR connection right here. You're also gonna get this control unit, which will allow you to control like light intensity, power, obviously, what group this is on. We'll get more into that a little bit later. And this is gonna just clip right onto the actual light, hang from the light. Gives you a lot more control because there is no place to put that on the actual unit itself. Speaking of that, this is the COB 120D. One of the great things about this light is that it has the option to support many industry standard attachments right here on the front, and it comes with a remote. Many of the Aperture lights, if not all of them, are able to be grouped with either A, B, or C right here on this remote, and then you can control everything on groups A, B, or C with one remote. And that's one of the main reasons that I'm recommending these Aperture lights, is because you can control all of them with the one remote. So if you have a 3-point light setup, which is generally recommended, you're gonna have your key light, your fill light, and your hair light, which I don't have, right now. But you can control all of them with that remote while you're standing in front of your camera. So I'm not gonna shine this directly into the lens. It is balanced for daylight. That's why it's the COB 120D. They do also offer a tungsten solution, so if you do have overhead lights that you want to keep on your set that are tungsten, which are more of a yellowish tint, then you're going to want to get the COB 120T. Whew. That's bright. I do have a couple of those lights, and I do have a couple what I like to call kicker lights. These are the Aperture Amaran lights. They're only about 50 bucks. They are rated for a 95 plus CRI, which is the color rendering index, basically how accurate it is in representing color. What I'll use these guys for is either a hair light, or if I need to shine some light on the background at all, or if I want to shine some light on a B-roll shot of a different product that's spinning around, that Lazy Susan, I can definitely do that with these guys. And again, I'm putting all that stuff on these Manfrotto air cushioned stands. These are the 1052 BAC stands, I guess. What's really cool about these is that they're stackable, so that they pack up really tight. So I like them a little bit more than I like C stands for LED lights, because you don't really need the heavy C stand stuff. And these travel much better because they're lighter. Like I said about those COB 120Ds, they do support a industry standard Bowens mount. Okay, and that's what this is. This is a Fresnel lens attachment for those that is a Bowens mount Fresnel lens. What that lets you do is kind of let you focus the light. So these are kind of flood a big area when you turn them on. When you attach this Fresnel lens, you can kind of focus it like a spotlight on whatever it is that you're trying to focus on. This Fresnel lens does have the option to change the beam angle, so you can widen that a bit as well. However, when you do use these, there is some light bleed here from these little vents. Just be aware of that. You can either put some black wrap around those, some gaff tape, whatever it is. As long as you're using it with the COB 120D, they shouldn't get that hot as a result. If you do step up to the 300D, then you're definitely not going to want to do that, because that light gets really hot. And of course, for lighting guys, you can't go wrong with some extension cables. These are just 15 footers because I don't have a whole lot big space that I have to worry about here, and I generally haven't needed that much more than that one in the field when I'm shooting corporate work. But definitely get to pick up a couple of these so that you can extend out some power strips or whatever it is that you use to plug in all your gear. Next up, because these Aperture lights do get really bright and they do kind of produce a harder light when they shine down on you, you're going to want some diffusion for those lights. And that's what this is. This is the Aperture Light Dome. This, because of that Bowens mount, attaches right to the front of the light. You throw a little diffusion on the front here, and that's going to soften that light up quite a bit, so that when it's hitting me, it's not creating some harsh shadows. Harsh shadows are kind of what you want to avoid unless you're really looking for like a really dramatic mood kind of thing, which obviously I'm not doing. So we want softer shadows, which diffusion helps create. Cherry Coke Zero. Tasty. Finally, for lights, we have colored gels. Colored gels do exactly what you think they would do. They create colored light that you can use to make the shots a little bit more interesting when you're shooting things like products or whatever it is. You can also use them to light the background or different things. Whatever you need to throw color on, that's what these are for. There are cheaper things that you can find online than these COB 120Ds. They are $650 a piece, and I do have 2 of them for my key and fill. Again, you don't have to spend that much money. You can buy things like the Limo Studio 3-point light kits on Amazon or whatever it is. You just want to make sure that you do have some sort of professional light when making your YouTube videos. One thing I forgot to mention was the monitor. I have the Atomos Ninja Inferno. Again, something I splurged on a little bit because I do also intend to do field work and use the monitor as my main recorder. If you don't want to use the monitor as your recording media, you don't have to spend as much money. And I'll have a list of monitors down in the description that you can check out for that purpose. But you do want something, if your camera is further away, if you are a one-man band, you want to make sure that you can check your focus, that you can see the exposure, different things like that while you're standing in front of the camera. So what I'll do is I'll run an HDMI cord from my camera to the monitor and set it right here or just off to the side so that I can see that. If you don't plan on doing a whole lot of field recording, you can absolutely get something bigger, like an actual computer monitor, spend like $100 and get a nice 24-inch 1080p monitor, just set it up to the side, and that'll take care of that for you. But if you're gonna be doing some field shooting, you want something that's more lightweight, transportable, stuff like that, something you can run on a cage. These smaller 5 or 7-inch monitors are a great choice. Finally, we have the tripod. This is one area where you can save money. I have a pretty basic Manfrotto tripod. It is a 502 head, and I'm not sure on the model of the legs. I'll put that in the description. But this was about $500. Now you can get, definitely, again, you can save money on this. You can get different tripods that are about $150 on Amazon that are actually worth it. If you're just gonna do studio stuff, again, I am going to be doing a few things out in the field. So I did want something a little bit more stable that can support more weight, because I will have things like a monitor, like the cage, that'll lock into this head. So I did go for a tripod that will support a higher load capacity. But again, something that's not required, just recommended based on the weight of your rig. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. This was just a small overview of all the different things that I got. I do plan on going in depth on a few of those things, like the monitor, the lights, the camera, for my full featured review on the channel. So make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified of when that content gets uploaded. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down and let us know why you didn't like it in the comments. We'd really appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you next time.